My name is Talia Brooks. I'm 37 years old, and the morning my son's adoption was supposed to become final, my mother-in-law stood up in courtroom 4B and told a judge she was his real mother. My 8-year-old Milo was holding my hand so tightly that I could feel every small bone in his fingers. Elaine Brooks smiled at me from the aisle like she had practiced it in a mirror and said, "Paperwork doesn't make you his mother, Talia." There were 12 people in that room, one sealed envelope on the judge's bench, and one blue coat button in Milo's pocket that nobody else knew about. I had spent 2 years getting him through nightmares, therapy appointments, supervised visits, school meetings, and the kind of fear that makes a child ask permission before taking a second piece of toast. Elaine had spent those same 2 years telling anyone who would listen that I was keeping him from his real family. What she didn't know was that the records she mocked had already been pulled before she ever walked into court with her friends and her folder. Minutes later, the judge closed that folder without reading most of it. And when she read one sentence from the sealed recommendation, Elaine's face changed so completely that even the clerk stopped typing. But I need to start before the courtroom, because that hearing was not the first time Elaine tried to make me disappear. It was just the first time she did it in front of someone who could stop her. Welcome back to By Then I Knew, where quiet people remember the moment they stopped carrying everyone else's version of the story. If you have ever been useful to a family that still treated you like an outsider, this one may stay with you. I am going to tell it the way it happened, including the small things I almost ignored, because sometimes the smallest detail is the one that proves you were never imagining it. Leave a comment with where you are listening from, and if this story finds the right place in you, stay until the end. I met Drew Brooks when I was 28 and working the front desk at a pediatric therapy clinic while finishing my compliance certification at night. Drew was a quiet man with tired eyes, the kind who said thank you to servers and held doors for strangers, but went still whenever his mother called. At first, I mistook that stillness for patience. I thought he was gentle. Later, I understood that he had trained himself not to disturb the weather in his own family. His mother, Elaine, welcomed me with a hug that felt like being measured. She smelled like expensive hand cream and the peppermint tins she kept in every purse. She had a soft voice in public, a sharper one in kitchens, and a way of calling insults concerns, so everyone else had to act grateful for her honesty. The first time Drew brought me to Sunday lunch, Elaine looked at the container of roasted vegetables I had made and said, "How practical." Drew's always needed someone practical. I laughed because everyone else did. That was how things worked around Elaine. If she wrapped the knife in tissue paper, you were supposed to admire the wrapping. Drew's younger sister, Vanessa, sat beside Elaine that day, scrolling through her phone with one hand and touching her mother's arm with the other, as if they were posing for a photo nobody had asked to take. Vanessa was pretty in a polished way. Smooth hair, careful nails, soft sweaters that never seemed to catch lint. She called me tall, after knowing me for 15 minutes, then told me she wished she could be as organized as I was, because she was too emotional to live out of spreadsheets. I didn't correct her. I did live out of spreadsheets in some ways. At work, I checked consent forms, appointment logs, incident reports, medication authorizations, court requests, school coordination notes, and release forms. My job was to make sure a child's care did not fall apart because someone forgot a signature or wrote the wrong date. I liked records because they were steady. They did not care who had the loudest feelings. They asked what happened, when, who was present, and what came next. Elaine found that funny. She used to tell people, "Talia knows where every form is, but bless her heart, she doesn't always understand the human side." I smiled when she said it. I had learned early in my life that smiling could keep a room from turning. My own mother had died when I was 19, and after that, I became the one who remembered everything for everyone. My father's prescriptions, my younger cousin's school pickup, the insurance papers, the funeral thank you notes. I did not think of it as unfair then. I thought being needed meant being loved. That belief cost me more years than I like to admit. Drew and I got married in a small ceremony at a botanical garden with white folding chairs and a cake Elaine called simple 3 times. She wore pale blue and cried loudly during the vows, though afterward she told me she was crying because Drew looked so thin. I moved into his house, painted the small downstairs bathroom, learned Elaine's birthday, Vanessa's coffee order, the name of the pharmacist Elaine preferred, and which uncle had to be seated far from which cousin at Thanksgiving. I became useful quickly. Elaine praised usefulness when it served her. If she needed someone to drive her to a colonoscopy, I was family. If Vanessa needed help making address labels for a charity brunch, I was family. If Drew forgot to send his father's old medical records to the insurance company, I was family. But when Elaine introduced me to people at church, she said, "This is Drew's wife, Talia," with a little pause where a warmer woman might have said daughter-in-law. I told myself not to be sensitive. That was another job I had taken on without being asked. Milo came into our lives on a wet Thursday in March, 2 years and 4 months before the adoption hearing. He was 5 then. He was Drew's brother's son, though he had not seen Drew's brother in nearly a year. His parents' situation was not something I am going to pick apart for entertainment. Addiction, missed court dates, unsafe housing, too many chances, not enough follow-through. By the time the county called Drew, Milo had already been in emergency placement for 6 nights. Drew got the call in our kitchen while I was rinsing coffee cups. I still remember the way he pressed the phone against his ear and looked at me, not like a man making a decision, but like a boy waiting to be told what to do. "They're asking about kinship placement," he said after he hung up. Elaine arrived before the caseworker did. She came in wearing her church coat, though it was almost 7 at night, and walked through our house as if inspecting it for sale. "Well," she said, standing in the small guest room where I had stripped the bed and started pulling clean sheets from the linen closet. "This will do temporarily." Temporarily. That was the first word she put over Milo's bed. He arrived with a hapless grocery bag of clothes, a stuffed gray rabbit with one missing eye, and a navy winter coat that was too small in the shoulders. He did not cry. I would have known what to do with crying. Crying gives you somewhere to put your hands. Milo stood by the front door and stared at the floor with his coat zipped to his chin. The caseworker then was named Nadine Porter. She had short, natural hair, wireframe glasses, and the tired mercy of someone who had seen too many living rooms try to pretend they were ready. She crouched in front of Milo and said, "This is Talia and Drew's house. You'll sleep here tonight. I'll see you tomorrow." Milo did not answer. His eyes went to me for half a second, then away. I showed him the bathroom, the bedroom, the nightlight, the drawer where I had put 2 pairs of socks I'd found in an unopened pack from Christmas donations at work. He watched my hands more than my face. When I asked if he wanted the door open or closed, he whispered, "Open like a little bit." So I left it open like a little bit. That night, after everyone had gone and Drew had fallen asleep on the couch with his phone on his chest, I found a flat blue button in the dryer lint trap. It had come off Milo's coat when I washed it on Gentle. I held it in my palm for a long moment. It was cheap plastic, scratched across the middle, with dark threads still knotted through 2 holes. Milo was sitting on the stairs when I turned around, silent, bare feet, gray rabbit tucked under his arm. "Did I do something?" he asked. "No," I said. "Your coat button came loose. I'm going to sew it back on." He looked at the button like it might decide whether he could stay. I took my small sewing kit from the junk drawer and sat at the kitchen table. He saw the stairs for a while, then came down 1 step at a time. He did not sit next to me. He stood near the wall and watched. "My grandma says I lose things," he said. "Buttons come loose," I told him. "That's what thread is for." He thought about that for a long time. The next morning, the coat was hanging by the door with the blue button sewn back on. Milo touched it with 1 finger before he put it on. That detail stayed with me. Elaine came over that afternoon with 3 shopping bags and a face arranged into grief. She brought new clothes with tags still on them, a plastic truck that made siren noises, and a framed photo of herself holding Milo when he was a baby. "My poor boy," she said, kneeling in front of him. "Grandma's here now." Milo stepped behind my leg, not dramatically, not in a way anyone could turn into a scene, just a small half step, the kind adults miss when they are busy performing. Elaine noticed. Her eyes flicked to my knee where Milo's hand had caught the fabric of my jeans. Well, she said lightly, we don't want him getting confused about who his people are. Nadine had told us that first week would be about stability. Same breakfast, same bedtime, same school drop-off, no surprise visitors without checking first. Elaine called those county rules, like they were a personal insult. She wanted to come every day. She wanted to take him to lunch. She wanted him at Sunday service. She wanted photos. You can't wrap a child in bubble wrap, she told me on the phone. He needs predictable right now, I said. He needs family, she said. I looked down at the notebook where I had written Milo woke at 1:40 a.m., 3:15 a.m., and 4:05 a.m. He had asked each time if the police were coming. I did not tell Elaine that. Something in me already knew she would use his fear as proof of her own importance. Drew tried, at first. He bought cereal with cartoon marshmallows because he remembered liking it as a kid. He put together a small bookshelf. He took one Friday afternoon off for a family team meeting and sat beside me in the county building, nodding while Nadine explained permanency timelines. But Drew was good at first efforts and poor at repetition. Children like Milo do not heal on first efforts. They heal on Tuesday mornings when they refuse to get out of the car. They heal on the 5th night of the same nightmare. They heal when someone remembers that grape jelly is fine, but strawberry jelly with seeds is not. They heal when adults do not make their pain into a stage. Within 3 months, I was the one taking Milo to therapy. I was the one emailing his teacher. I was the one tracking visits, washing the rabbit by hand, learning the difference between his quiet because he was peaceful and his quiet because he was gone somewhere inside himself. Drew started saying, "You're better at this stuff than we are." It sounded like a compliment the first time. By the 10th time, I understood it was a permission slip he had written for himself. Elaine visited when there was an audience. She came to the first school spring concert, with a bouquet so large Milo could barely hold it. She took pictures in the hallway and posted one with the caption, "My brave little man. Grandma will always fight for you." She did not ask why he cried in the car afterward or why he slept under his bed that night, with his rabbit pressed against his mouth. When I told her that public attention overwhelmed him, she sighed. "You see, this is what I mean. You turn everything into a clinical note. I'm telling you what happened. You're telling me your interpretation." Then she looked at Drew, who was standing by the refrigerator, peeling the label off a water bottle. He said, "Mom, Talia's just trying to keep things consistent. Just trying." Even his defense made me smaller. The first time Elaine called herself Mom, it was on a birthday card. Milo turned 6 in our backyard. He wanted cupcakes, bubbles, and no singing. I told everyone ahead of time. Twice, because singing had become one of those things that made him freeze. Elaine brought a sheet cake anyway, white frosting with blue balloons, and when I said quietly that we had cupcakes, she said, "Children need memories, Talia." Vanessa lit the candles. Drew looked at me with apology already on his face, which meant he knew he would not help. Elaine began singing. The cousins joined in. Milo's shoulders climbed toward his ears. I crouched beside him and said, "Look at me. You can blow when you're ready." He stared at me so hard his eyes watered. When the song ended, he blew once, weakly, and missed half the candles. Elaine clapped. "That's our boy." Later, after everyone left, Milo handed me a card. It had a cartoon bear on the front. Inside, Elaine had written, "Love, Mom Elaine." I read it twice. My thumb went still on the paper. Drew was loading trash into a black bag. She probably didn't mean it like that. I looked at him. How else is there to mean it? He tied the bag too tightly, the plastic stretching white. She's grieving. I remember the kitchen light humming above us. I remember Milo in the living room lining up toy cars by color, something he did when adults got too loud. I remember wanting Drew to turn, really turn, and see what was happening. Instead, he said, "Can we not make tonight harder?" That became the family rule. Elaine could do the harm. I could make it harder by naming it. I kept the card in a folder, not because I had a plan, not then. I kept it because my job had taught me not to throw away dated things that made my stomach tighten. The blue button came off Milo's coat again that winter after a supervised visit. He was 6.5 by then, taller, still too thin, with a habit of asking how many minutes we would be somewhere before agreeing to go inside. The county had moved Elaine's visits to supervision after she repeatedly ignored the transition plan. Elaine called that being treated like a criminal for loving my grandson. After one of those visits, Milo climbed into my car and picked at his coat all the way home. I did not ask questions in the parking lot. I had learned that children often tell the truth sideways, later, when their shoes are off and the room is quiet. At home, he stood by the sink while I made toast. "Grandma says coats don't stay with the wrong person," he said. I turned the burner off. What did she mean? He shrugged too hard. "She said sometimes people put your name on stuff, but it's not really theirs." The button was in his fist. He had worried it free from the thread. His palm was sweaty, and the button had left a little circle pressed into his skin. I held out my hand. "Do you want me to fix it again?" He looked at the button, then at me. "Can you just keep it?" So I put it in a small white dish beside the sink where I kept safety pins and spare keys. For weeks, Milo would check that dish when he came into the kitchen. He never mentioned it. He just looked. That was around the time Elaine began texting me things that did not match reality. At 8:12 one Tuesday morning, she left a voicemail saying she had a migraine and could not make her supervised visit that afternoon. At 3:47 p.m., she texted, "I'm heartbroken that you keep finding ways to cancel my time with him." I stood in the clinic records room when I read it, surrounded by locked cabinets and the soft clicking of the copier. I played the voicemail again. "Migraine, can't come. Tell my boy grandma tried." Then I looked at the text. I saved both. At work, when something did not match, we did not argue with it. We preserved the original, documented the discrepancy, and kept moving. That habit had once seemed boring to Elaine. It was becoming the only reason I trusted myself. The next week, Elaine sent Drew a long message about how Milo was being conditioned against his blood. Drew did not show it to me, but I saw the preview on his phone when it lit up on the kitchen counter. He snatched it quickly and said, "It's nothing, then show me." He rubbed his forehead. "Talia, please." Please meant do not make me choose, so I didn't ask again. I started watching instead. Drew still lived in the house then, but he had become like a guest who slept in the primary bedroom. He loved Milo in a hesitant, guilty way. He brought home little toys, said yes to things I had already said no to, and disappeared into the garage when Milo melted down. He did not want to hurt anyone. That sounds kind until you are standing between a child and an adult who is hurting him, and the person beside you thinks neutrality is peace. Elaine kept telling people I was cold. She told the pastor's wife that I made everything legal. She told Vanessa I was building a wall around Milo. She told Drew that I liked being needed because I could not have children of my own, which was a private grief she had no right to touch. I had wanted a child. Drew and I had tried before Milo came. There had been appointments, tests. One very early loss I did not tell many people about, because Elaine had already made one comment about God's timing that made me want to leave my own kitchen. When Milo arrived, I did not think, here is my replacement dream. I thought, here is a child who needs clean sheets and a nightlight, and someone who will not leave the room just because he cannot explain his fear politely. Elaine never believed that. Or maybe she could not afford to believe it. If I loved him without trying to own him, then her performance started to look like what it was. The agency goal shifted slowly. At first, reunification was the word on every paper. Then concurrent planning. Then permanency. Then adoption started appearing in conversations with careful pauses around it. By then, Milo was 7. He had learned to sleep with his door open only 6 inches instead of all the way. He had a reading group at school, a therapist named Miss Camille, and a habit of putting one hand on my sleeve in grocery stores when the aisles got crowded. He called me Talia for the first year. Then one night, after a fever and a thunderstorm and a long hour of changing damp pillowcases, he called me Mama in his sleep. I did not tell anyone for 2 days. I held it like something warm I was afraid to breathe on. When Elaine found out months later, not from me, she arrived at our house with a smile that made my shoulders tighten. "So we're doing that now," she said. "Doing what?" She glanced toward the living room, where Milo was building a cardboard garage for his toy cars. "Names." I kept my voice low. "Milo can call people what feels safe to him." Essine's smile thinned. "Children don't always know what's safe. Adults teach them." I agree. She heard the meaning. Her eyes sharpened. That was the afternoon she said the sentence that would follow us all the way to court. Paperwork doesn't make you his mother, Talia. I was standing beside the dishwasher with a wet mug in my hand. Drew was at the table, pretending to look for something in the mail. Vanessa had come with Elaine and was leaning against the counter, filming Milo's cardboard garage for her story. Everyone heard it. I did not answer right away. Milo did not look up, but one of the cardboard walls bent under his hand. Finally, I said, "No, it doesn't." Elaine looked pleased, like she thought I had agreed with her. I dried the mug and put it away. I did not say the rest of what I was thinking. Paperwork did not make me his mother. It made it harder for everyone to lie about who had been mothering him. The adoption petition was filed the following spring. By then, Drew and I were separated, though not loudly. He had moved into a furnished apartment near the highway after a fight that did not sound dramatic enough to end a marriage when I tell it plainly. Elaine had called Milo, my baby, at a supervised visit and told him, "Soon everyone will remember where you belong." Milo came home and threw up in the driveway. I asked Drew to call his mother and tell her that language had to stop. He said he would. Then he went outside, sat in his truck for 20 minutes, and came back in smelling like cold air. "What did she say?" I asked. He put his keys in the bowl, she cried. "And?" She said, "You're trying to cut her out." "And what did you say?" He looked at me then, and I saw the answer before he spoke. I told her we all need to calm down. Something in me went quiet, not numb. Clear. That night, after Milo finally slept, I sat at the kitchen table with the small white dish in front of me. The blue button was there beside a bent paper clip and a spare mailbox key. I opened my laptop and created a folder named Milo Records. Not Elaine, not evidence, not court, Milo Records. I saved the voicemail from the missed visit. I exported the texts. I made a timeline in plain language, no adjectives, no guesses. March 14. Elaine canceled visit by voicemail at 8:12 a.m., citing migraine. Text at 3:47 p.m. states Talia canceled visit. March 29. Milo returned from supervised visit and stated, "Grandma says coats don't stay with the wrong person. Increased nightmares for 3 nights. April 6. Elaine birthday card signed, Mom Elaine. Card retained. I did not know whether anyone would ever need it, but I knew I needed to stop letting the family tell me my memory was the problem. The first outside person to confirm what I was seeing was Ruth Bell. Ruth lived next door in a brick ranch house with tidy hedges and a porch light that came on at 5 every evening, even in June. She was a retired elementary school secretary, which meant she knew how to read a situation without appearing to stare. She had met Milo when he kicked a soccer ball over her fence, and then hid behind my trash cans because he thought she would call the police. Ruth brought the ball back, placed it gently on our side of the fence, and said, "No emergency here." After that, Milo trusted her in small increments. He waved. Then he accepted a popsicle. Then he let her show him how to plant marigold seeds in a row. One Thursday in May, Ruth knocked on my back door while I was washing strawberries. "I don't want to stir anything," she said, which is how careful women announce bad news. I dried my hands. What happened? I was volunteering in the school office this morning, just filing things. Elaine came in. My hand tightened on the towel. She told Mrs. Keene she was Milo's grandmother and needed to pick him up early for a family appointment. Mrs. Keene checked the list and said she wasn't authorized. Elaine got very upset. "What time?" Ruth's eyes softened. She knew exactly why I asked. 9:42. I wrote it on the church bulletin in my purse because something about it bothered me. I sat down at the kitchen table. Ruth did not fill the silence with advice. She took the strawberries from the sink, cut the tops off, and put them in the blue bowl Milo liked. That small act nearly undid me. I sent an email to Nadine with the date, time, school name, staff member, and Ruth's contact information. No adjectives, no outrage. "No, I'm scared, though I was." Nadine replied 3 hours later, "Thank you. Please continue documenting factual incidents. I am adding the school concern to the case record." The phrase case record made the room feel colder. A few days later, Nadine came for a home visit. She sat on the living room rug because Milo wanted to show her the cardboard city he had built from cereal boxes. She asked him ordinary questions. Which building is the library? Where do the cars park? Does the rabbit live in the apartment or the fire station? Milo answered more than he usually did. Nadine noticed. Nadine always noticed. When Milo went to wash paint off his hands, she stayed seated on the rug and looked at me. "Keep your records factual," she said. "I have no adjectives." I know. Her face changed. Just a little. "You do know. I do compliance for pediatric behavioral health. I remember." She capped her pen. "Then you understand why dates matter." I did. I also understood that she was telling me something without telling me too much. Before she left, she stood by the door and said, "If Elaine contacts you outside approved channels, don't engage more than necessary. Preserve it. Preserve it. Not ignore it. Not forgive it. Preserve it." When I told Drew about the school incident, he sat on the porch steps with his elbows on his knees and stared at the driveway. "She wouldn't have taken him," he said. "She tried. She probably panicked." "Drew." He looked up then. For a second, I saw the man I had once thought he could become. Tired, yes, but present. "She went too far," he said. I felt my throat tighten. "Yes," he nodded. "I'll talk to her." Not talk. Boundary. There needs to be a boundary. I know. The next night, he came over after Milo was asleep. He stood on the porch, holding his phone, his breath fogging in the cold. He said he had spoken to Elaine. He said she was devastated. He said she felt like the county was stealing the last piece of her son's family. Then he said, "Could you maybe let her say a few words at the hearing, just so she doesn't feel cut out?" I stared at him through the screen door. That was his almost moment. He had walked right up to the edge of doing the right thing, looked over it, and asked me to build his mother a bridge back. "No," I said, his face folded, not in anger, in disappointment. Like I had failed a test he had not told me he was giving. "She's still his grandmother," he said. "She is an adult who tried to remove him from school." She was scared. So was he. Drew looked away first. I realized then that waiting for him to become brave was another way of leaving myself alone. The hearing date came in a white envelope with the county seal in the upper left corner. Finalization, June 18. 9:30 a.m., courtroom 4B. Milo carried the paper around for an hour after I read it to him. He did not smile at first. He sat on the living room floor with the paper beside him and pushed a blue car back and forth over the rug. "What happens there?" he asked. "The judge asks some questions. I answer them. You can answer if you want to, but you don't have to. Do I have to see everybody? Some people may be there." "Grandma." I sat on the floor across from him. "Maybe." His hand stopped on the car. I wanted to tell him no. I wanted to build a world where Elaine could not enter rooms where he was trying to become safe. But the court process was not mine to decorate with wishes. "If she comes," I said, "I will be right there." He nodded without looking at me. Then he asked, "If I get adopted, does Grandma die?" I went very still. "No," I said carefully. "Why would you ask that?" He rubbed the car wheels against the rug. "She said people get erased." I felt something hot and old move through me. Not the kind of anger that makes you loud, the kind that makes you precise. "Adoption does not make anyone die," I said. "It makes the grown-up responsible for keeping you safe." Official. He thought about that. "Official like school papers?" "Yes." "Official like the doctor knows?" "Yes." "Official like if someone says I have to go, you can say no?" I swallowed. "Yes." He leaned against my knee then, slowly, like he was testing whether I would move. That night, after he went to bed, I added the sentence to the timeline. May 27. Milo asked whether adoption means grandmother dies. Stated Elaine said people get erased. I did not sleep much. The week before court, Elaine started behaving like a person arranging a performance. Vanessa posted a photo of 3 dresses on her story with a poll. Which one says family court but make it gracious? Elaine called Drew twice a day. Church friends I barely knew started sending me messages about forgiveness. One woman named Marcy wrote, "A boy needs all the love he can get. Don't let bitterness win." I did not respond. Elaine sent one email directly to me, copying Drew and Vanessa. "Talia, I hope when this is over you will remember that Milo had a family before he had a file. We are asking only for what is fair. A regular schedule, unsupervised time, holidays, and the right to be named properly in his life. I will not be treated like a stranger to my own child. Elaine, my own child." I printed the email, saved it as a PDF, and forwarded it to Nadine with one sentence, "Received today." No response sent. Nadine replied the next morning, "Thank you. At the hearing, answer only what you are asked. Let the court manage interruptions." Then, a A second message came 1 minute later. If Mrs. Brooks chooses to speak, let her. I read that sentence several times. That was when I noticed the court notice had been amended. Not the date, not the courtroom. A line near the bottom now included the Guardian ad litem and department final recommendation as submitted under seal. Under seal meant I could not read it. Elaine could not read it either, but the judge could. I printed the notice and placed it in my slim gray folder with the adoption petition, Milo's birth certificate copy, school letter, medical summary, and my identification. Elaine liked thick folders. She believed weight meant truth. I had learned that one clean page could do more than 50 pages written for applause. The night before court, Ruth came over with a travel steamer and 2 breakfast sandwiches wrapped in foil. "I know you didn't ask," she said, stepping into the kitchen. "But I figured asking would just give you one more decision." Milo was at the table, rolling the blue button between his fingers. He had asked for it after dinner. I had taken it from the white dish and placed it in his palm. Ruth noticed but did not ask. "I hate the shirt," Milo said. "I know," Ruth said. "The tag is scratchy." I brought tiny scissors. He looked at her with cautious respect. She trimmed the tag, steamed the shirt, and placed it over the back of a chair. Then she put a granola bar into the pocket of his jacket. "For after," she said. "Courthouses take longer than children deserve." Milo almost smiled. After Ruth left, I found him standing by the front door with the blue button in his hand. "Can I take it?" he asked. "To court," he nodded. "In my pocket. It remembers." "What does it remember?" He looked embarrassed then, as if he had said too much. "The first house that kept me." I turned away for a second so he would not have to carry my face too. "Yes," I said, "you can take it. The morning of June 18 was too bright. That is what I remember. Some mornings should have rain. Some should have clouds low enough to match the weight in your chest. But that morning, the sky was clean and blue, and sunlight kept catching on the windshield while Milo sat in the back seat wearing his steamed shirt with the tag cut. Out Ruth followed us in her car. I had not asked her to. She just said, "I'll park nearby in case you need anything," which meant she would be there but not take over. Drew texted at 8:41. "Mom is coming. Please don't react." I read it twice in the courthouse parking lot. Please don't react. Not please don't worry. Not I'll handle her. Not I'm sorry. Milo unbuckled his seatbelt and leaned forward. "Is it time?" I locked my phone. Yes. Inside, the family courthouse smelled like floor polish, paper, and vending machine coffee. There were families in every corner. Some dressed for celebration. Some dressed like they had been up all night. A toddler cried near the metal detector because a security officer needed to scan his stuffed bear. Someone down the hall laughed too loudly, and the sound bounced off the tile. Milo pressed against my side. Courtroom 4B was on the second floor. We were early. I had planned it that way, because Milo did better when he could see a room before it filled. Ruth waited with us by a long window overlooking the parking lot. She gave Milo the granola bar. He held it but did not open it. At 9:12, the elevator doors opened, and Elaine stepped out like she was arriving at a luncheon. She wore cream, which felt deliberate. A soft cream suit, pearl earrings, low heels, her silver hair swept back. Vanessa came beside her in a navy dress, phone already in hand. Behind them were 3 women from Elaine's church, including Marcy, the one who had messaged me about bitterness. Drew came last. That order told me more than any speech could have. Elaine saw Milo and opened her arms. "There's my boy." Milo's fingers dug into my hand. I said quietly, "You can wave if you want. You don't have to hug." Elaine heard me. Her face tightened. "How sad," she said, not quietly enough. "He used to run to me." No, I thought. He used to be small enough for adults to call freezing obedience. Drew looked at me, then at his mother, then at the floor. Vanessa lifted her phone slightly. Ruth stepped between Vanessa's phone and Milo as if she were simply adjusting her purse strap. "Good morning," Ruth said. Vanessa blinked. "Sorry, who are you?" "Someone who knows how to stand where I'm useful," Ruth said. I almost laughed. Not because it was funny, exactly. Because it was the first time that morning someone had blocked a blow without making a scene. A clerk opened the courtroom doors at 9:26. Judge Miriam Caro's courtroom was smaller than I expected. Wooden benches, a seal on the wall, 2 tables, a clerk station, a pitcher of water near the judge's bench. There were tissue boxes in 3 places, which told me this room had seen more endings than the hallway admitted. We sat at the front table with the adoption attorney and guardian ad litem. Milo sat between me and the attorney, his feet not quite touching the floor. Ruth sat directly behind us. Drew sat 2 rows back beside Elaine, though there was room beside me. Vanessa and the church friends sat together like an audience. Nadine Porter stood near the back wall with a thin folder against her chest. Elaine noticed her and frowned. I noticed something else. On the judge's bench, to the left of the nameplate, was a sealed manila envelope with a red tab. I did not know what was inside, but I knew the look of a document that had already arrived where it needed to go. Judge Caro entered at 9:34. Everyone stood. She was a woman in her late 50s, with dark hair cut at her jaw and reading glasses hanging from a chain. Her face was not warm, exactly, but it was awake. She looked at Milo before she looked at any adult. "Good morning," she said. "Please be seated." The first few minutes were ordinary. Names for the record, case number. Purpose of hearing, the adoption attorney spoke in a steady voice. The guardian ad litem confirmed she was present. Nadine confirmed the department was present. Judge Caro reviewed the petition. Milo's hand found mine under the table. The judge looked at him. "Milo, you do not have to speak today unless you want to. Do you understand?" He nodded. "You may also ask for a break." He nodded again. Elaine shifted behind us. I could feel her impatience like heat. Judge Caro turned to me. "Ms. Brooks, you understand that adoption is a permanent legal relationship?" "Yes, Your Honor." "You understand you will assume all rights and responsibilities of parenthood?" "Yes, Your Honor." My voice was steady. My palm was damp. The judge asked a few more questions. Had I reviewed the documents? Was I entering freely? Did I understand inheritance, medical decision-making, education, support? Each yes felt like a rung on a ladder Milo and I had been climbing for years. Then Elaine stood, not when invited, not when named. She rose from the second row with a folder clutched against her chest and said, "Your Honor, I need to object before this goes any further." The clerk's hands paused above the keyboard. Judge Caro looked at her over the rim of her glasses. "Mom, please state your name." "Elaine Brooks. I am Milo's grandmother." The word grandmother hung there. For 1 second, I thought she might stay inside reality. Then she added, "And for all practical purposes, I am the only real mother he has left." Milo's fingers tightened so hard I almost gasped. Behind Elaine, Marcy whispered, "Amen," then caught herself. Vanessa's phone was angled low, half hidden by her purse. Judge Caro's expression did not change. "Mrs. Brooks, this is a finalization hearing. If you have filed something, the court will address it in order." Elaine stepped into the aisle. "I filed this morning because I was not given a fair chance. This woman has isolated him from his blood family, coached him, and made herself look like a savior while cutting out the people who loved him first." My attorney began to stand. Judge Caro lifted one hand, barely. "Mrs. Brooks," the judge said, "you will not refer to the petitioner as this woman. Her name is Ms. Brooks." Elaine smiled. "Of course. Talia." She said my name like a napkin dropped on the floor. Then she looked at me, in front of the judge, the clerk, the caseworker, the guardian ad litem, her friends, my estranged husband, my neighbor, and my trembling child. "Paperwork doesn't make you his mother, Talia." I heard Vanessa's quiet intake of breath, pleased and nervous at the same time. One of Elaine's friends gave a soft clap before realizing nobody else had joined. Then Marcy clapped too. 2 small claps in a courtroom where a child was trying not to cry. I turned to Milo. His eyes were fixed on the table, wide and wet. I leaned close enough that only he could hear me. "Look at me," he did. "Breathe with me," he did. That was the moment Elaine thought she had won. I could feel it. She believed my quiet was fear. She believed Milo's shaking was proof that he was confused. She believed the people she brought with her made her claim heavier. Judge Caro looked at Elaine's folder. "Mrs. Brooks, approach and provide your filing to the clerk." Elaine moved quickly, as if speed could become authority. She handed over a thick folder with colored tabs, character letters, photos, a printed calendar. I could see the labels from where I sat. Church, holidays, family history, concerns. The clerk took it to the bench. Judge Caro opened it. She read the first page, then the second. Her face remained still. Elaine stood in the aisle, hands folded, chin lifted. My grandson has been manipulated, she said. He called me mom before Talia interfered. My whole body went cold. There it was. Not grandmother, not caregiver, not another adult who loved him. Mom. Judge Caro's eyes lifted from the folder. Mrs. Brooks, you are saying the child called you mom? Elaine softened her voice. Children know who loves them. That was not my question. The room changed then, not loudly. It changed the way weather changes when the pressure drops. Elaine blinked. He knew me as a mother figure. Did you instruct the child during supervised contact to call you mom? Vanessa lowered her phone. Drew looked at his shoes. Elaine gave a small laugh, the kind people use when they think a question is beneath them. I reminded him of the truth. Milo flinched. Judge Caro saw it. Nadine saw it. Ruth saw it. I know they did because all three of them moved their eyes at the same time, not toward Elaine, but toward Milo. The judge closed Elaine's folder. The sound was soft. It still seemed to fill the room. Mrs. Brooks, she said, your own statement has made the sealed recommendation directly relevant. Elaine's smile faltered. I'm sorry. Judge Caro reached for the manila envelope. With the red tab, she broke the seal and removed a document. She did not shuffle. She did not search. Whatever she needed was marked. My attorney sat very still beside me. I did not look at Elaine. I looked at Milo's hand in mine and at the faint outline of the blue button in his pocket. Judge Caro said, for the record, the court has reviewed the department's final recommendation, the guardian ad litem's report, supervised visitation summaries, school contact documentation, and the child's therapeutic status summary submitted under seal. The court will read one sentence. Elaine said, Your Honor, I have letters from people who know my character. Judge Caro looked at her. I am not evaluating your character. I am evaluating the child's safety and permanency. No one clapped that time. The judge looked down at the page. It is the department's final recommendation that adoption by Talia Brooks proceed today, and that Elaine Brooks have no contact with the child absent further court order due to documented emotional coercion, boundary violations, and repeated interference with the child's permanency. The room went silent in a way I had never heard before. Not empty, full. Elaine's mouth opened slightly. Marchese looked down at her lap. Vanessa stopped breathing through her nose. Drew's shoulders folded inward. Nadine's face did not change, but her eyes came to Milo for just a second. Ruth's hand touched the back of my chair, so lightly that no one else would have noticed. Milo loosened his grip on my hand. Not all the way, just enough that blood came back into my fingers. Elaine recovered first because people like Elaine often mistake recovery for control. That is not fair, she said. I have never harmed that child. Judge Caro kept the page in front of her. Mrs. Brooks, the record reflects multiple incidents. You were instructed not to discuss permanency with the child. You did. You were instructed not to pressure the child regarding names or family roles. You did. You attempted school pickup without authorization. You missed scheduled supervised contact and later represented that Ms. Brooks canceled those visits. The record reflects the child experienced increased anxiety symptoms after CACT in which you challenged his placement and adoption. Elaine turned toward Nadine. You twisted everything. Nadine stood straight. No, Mom, that was all she said. 2 words. No anger, no defense of herself, no performance. Elaine looked back at the judge. He is my grandson. Yes, Judge Caro said. And he is a child. He is not a remedy for adult grief. That sentence stayed in the room. Elaine's face flushed. You don't understand our family. The judge's voice did not rise. I understand the record. I had spent years being told that records were cold. In that courtroom, the record was the only thing warm enough to protect him. Judge Caro turned to the adoption attorney. Counsel, any response to the objection? My attorney stood. Briefly, Your Honor. Mrs. Brooks has not established standing to delay finalization. More importantly, the substance of her statement today confirms the concerns reflected in the sealed submissions. Ms. Brooks is prepared to proceed. The guardian ad litem stood next. She was a woman named Patrice Hill, small, direct, and impossible to rush. Your Honor, I support finalization today. Milo has expressed, in developmentally appropriate language, that he feels safe with Miss Brooks and wants the court process completed. Further delay would not serve him. Judge Caro nodded. Elaine clutched the back of the bench in front of her. Did anyone ask him if he wants his real family? Milo's hand twitched. I leaned close again. You don't have to answer. But Milo lifted his head. His voice was very small. I want to go home with Mama. No one moved. Elaine looked as if he had slapped her. I closed my eyes for half a second, not to savor it, not to make it mine, but because I knew what that sentence cost him. He had not said it to punish her. He had said it because the room had finally made space for his truth. Judge Caro's expression softened for the first time. Thank you, Milo, she said. You do not need to say anything else. Then she looked at Elaine. The objection is denied. The request to delay finalization is denied. The court will proceed. Elaine sat down hard. The rest of the hearing felt both clear and far away. Judge Caro asked me the final questions. I answered yes. Yes, I understood. Yes, I accepted. Yes, I would provide care, support, education, medical decision-making, stability, and protection. Yes, I wanted this adoption finalized. Wanted was too small a word, but it was the word the law had room for. The judge signed the order at 10:18 a.m. I know because I looked at the clock. The clerk stamped something. The sound cracked through the room like a small door closing. Judge Caro looked at Milo. Milo, this means Ms. Brooks is now your legal parent. Do you understand? Milo looked at me first. I nodded. He said, Can I still call her Mama? Judge Caro's mouth moved, almost a smile. Yes, he thought for a second. Can we go home now this time? The judge did smile. Very soon, Elaine made a sound behind us, not a sob, not exactly. More like a person realizing the room no longer belonged to her. Judge Caro added, The no-contact provision recommended by the department is adopted pending further order of the court. Mrs. Brooks is not to contact the child directly or indirectly, including through third parties, school, electronic communication, gifts, or messages. Any request for modification must be made formally through the court. Vanessa whispered, Mom. Elaine stood again, but slower this time. Your Honor, please, that is excessive. We are family. Judge Caro looked at her for a long moment. Mrs. Brooks, the hearing is concluded. The clerk said, All rise. Everyone stood because the judge stood, even Elaine. When Judge Caro left the bench, the spell broke unevenly. The church friends gathered their purses without looking at me. Marcy's face was red. She moved past Elaine so quickly that her shoulder brushed the bench. Vanessa tucked her phone deep into her purse. Mr. Sykes, the security officer near the door, stepped toward Vanessa. He had been quiet the whole time, a tall man with gray at his temples and a radio clipped to his belt. Mom, he said, recording is not permitted. Do not delete anything in the courtroom. The clerk will advise if needed. Vanessa froze. I wasn't. He looked at her purse. She stopped. That was the first consequence Elaine had not planned for. Not the largest, just the first visible one. Her audience had become witnesses. Drew came toward me while I was sliding the signed papers into my gray folder. His face looked older than it had that morning. Talia, he said. I did not turn fully. Milo was leaning against my side, and I was not going to shift him away to make room for Drew's guilt. I didn't know it was that bad, he said. I looked at him then. The old version of me would have explained. I would have reminded him of the birthday card, the school incident, the vomit in the driveway, the texts, the visits, the nights he had spent in the garage while Milo cried in the hall. I would have built a staircase from his denial to the truth and begged him to walk down it. Instead, I said, You knew enough. His eyes filled. Maybe with shame, maybe with self-pity. I no longer needed to sort them. Elaine pushed past Vanessa and came toward me with both hands lifted, palms out, like she was approaching a frightened animal. Talia, she said. Her voice had changed. It was soft now, trembling in all the right places. Please don't do this. We both love him. We can talk privately. I was emotional. Ruth stepped closer behind me. Not in front. She knew I did not need rescuing. She was just there. Elaine looked at Milo. Sweetheart, Grandma didn't mean to scare you. Milo turned his face into my sleeve. I said, Do not speak to him. Elaine's eyes flashed, then filled. The speed of it would have impressed me once. We are still family, she whispered. I held the gray folder against my ribs. Inside it was the stamped order. My name, Milo's name, the law catching up to what our mornings had already known. No, I said. We're not available for what you call family. Her mouth tightened. You'll regret cutting people off. I did not answer. Not because I had no answer. because some doors close better without a slam. The clerk handed my attorney the certified copies. Nadine came over then. She crouched slightly so her eyes were level with Milo's, though she kept enough distance not to crowd him. "You did a hard thing," she said. Milo peeked out from my sleeve. "Can we leave?" "Yes," Nadine said. "You can leave." He seemed to accept that from her in a way he could not yet accept it from the room. In the hallway, Ruth handed him the granola bar he had never opened. "Now?" she asked. He nodded and took it. We walked past the long window where we had waited earlier. Sunlight covered the floor in pale rectangles. Behind us, Elaine was speaking to Drew in a low, sharp voice. I heard my name once, then the word unfair, then Vanessa saying, "Mom, not here, not here." That was the problem for them now. There were suddenly places where Elaine could not control the sound. At the elevator, Milo reached into his pocket and pulled out the blue button. He checked it, closed his fist around it, and leaned against me. Ruth pressed the elevator button. Nobody spoke until we got outside. The air felt too hot after the courthouse. The parking lot shimmered. Cars moved in and out. Somewhere a man laughed into his phone. Ordinary life had the nerve to continue. Milo stood on the courthouse steps and looked up at me. "Is it done?" I knelt in front of him, careful of my skirt on the concrete. "Yes. Done, done?" "Done, done." His face changed then, not into joy right away. Relief came first, and relief can look like exhaustion. His mouth trembled. He put both arms around my neck and held on. I held him back. Ruth looked away to give us privacy, which made me love her a little. We did not have the party Elaine had tried to plan months earlier. The one with a guest list full of her friends and a cake that said "Our family is whole again." I had canceled that idea before it became real. Elaine had called me petty. Vanessa had said Milo deserved celebration. Drew had said, "It's just cake." Instead, we went to a pancake place 2 towns over where nobody knew us. Milo changed into a soft t-shirt in the bathroom because Ruth had brought one in her tote bag. We sat in a booth near the back. Ruth ordered coffee. I ordered pancakes for Milo and eggs I barely touched. The waitress asked if we were celebrating anything. Milo looked at me. I said, "Adoption Day." The waitress smiled like she Kennet. "Then the whipped cream is on the house." Milo ate 4 bites, then asked if he could put the blue button on the table beside his plate. I said yes. He placed it there carefully, between the syrup and his fork. Ruth did not ask what it meant. She just moved her coffee so it would not spill near it. That afternoon, I changed every emergency contact form. School, therapist, pediatrician, aftercare program. I sent certified copies where needed and wrote short emails with clear subject lines. Updated custody, adoption documentation attached. No editorialize, no explaining Elaine, no pleading to be believed. At 4:30, the school secretary, Mrs. Keene, replied, "Received. Congratulations to you and Milo. Pickup permissions updated." I sat at the kitchen table and cried then. Not in the courthouse, not in front of Elaine, not while still signing the order. At the kitchen table, reading one ordinary sentence from a school secretary who understood what updated meant. Milo came in and saw my face. "Sad crying?" he asked. I wiped my cheeks. "No, big day crying." He considered that and climbed into the chair beside me. "Can we put the button somewhere safe now?" "Yes." We found a small shadow box frame at the craft store the next weekend. Milo chose it himself. White wood. Plain. He asked if we could put the adoption photo inside, the one Ruth had taken outside the courthouse after pancakes, when my hair had come loose and Milo was squinting in the sun. We taped the blue button to a small piece of navy fabric and placed it behind the photo, visible in the corner if you knew to look. "The first house that kept me," he had said. I did not write that on the frame. Some things do not need captions. Elaine tried to contact us twice in the first month. The first was through Drew. He sent a text that said, "Mom wants to send Milo a letter. Therapist says letters can be healing, right?" I replied, "The court order says no direct or indirect contact. Do not ask again." He did not answer for 3 days. The second was a card mailed to Ruth's house, because Elaine had apparently decided that safe people were just obstacles she had not manipulated yet. Ruth brought it over in a plastic bag like it was evidence from a crime show. "I didn't open it," she said. I looked at the handwriting. Elaine's careful loops. Mrs. Ruth Bell written on the front, as if politeness could launder disobedience. I forwarded a photo to my attorney. The attorney forwarded it where it needed to go. I did not show Milo. I did not ask him to be strong about it. Adults had asked enough from him. Elaine left one voicemail on my phone before I blocked the number completely. I listened once because my attorney asked me to preserve it. "Talia," she said, crying softly. "You have made your point. Please, I know I said things. I was scared. You of all people should understand what it feels like to want a child. Don't punish me for loving him." There it was. My private grief, pulled out again and used as a handle. I saved the voicemail, then I blocked her. Drew came by the house in August to pick up some tools he had left in the garage. Milo was at Ruth's planting late-season basil, so the house was quiet. Drew stood in the doorway between the kitchen and hall, holding a socket wrench set and looking at the shadow box on the wall. "He looks happy," he said. "He is getting there." Drew nodded. "Mom's not doing well. I put a glass in the cabinet. That's not mine to manage. She lost a lot." I turned then. "She lost access because of what she did." He flinched. "I know," he said. She keeps saying you took everyone from her." I almost laughed, but it would have come out too tired. "No, Drew." The court read the record. He looked at the floor. "Same posture, same escape. I should have done more," he said. Yes, maybe he expected comfort. Maybe he expected me to say he did the best he could. I did not. Sometimes the kindest thing you can do for yourself is stop making soft places for people who left you standing on concrete. He wiped his eyes with the heel of his hand. "Can I still get updates about Milo?" "Through the adoption attorney for now. Nothing goes to your mother. Nothing gets forwarded. Nothing gets discussed with Vanessa." He nodded quickly. Of course, I did not trust quickly anymore. After he left, I checked the shadow box. I don't know why. Maybe because every visit from the Brooks family made me want to make sure the walls were still there. The button was still in place. The photo was straight. Milo's smile was small but real. In September, Vanessa posted something online without names. I only saw it because a mutual acquaintance sent it to me with a question mark. Some people use courts to destroy families and call it protection. Praying for every grandmother erased by bitter women. There were 8 comments when I saw it. 3 hearts. 1 so sorry. 1 people are cruel. Then, 20 minutes later, the post disappeared. I found out from Ruth that Marcy had called Vanessa. Apparently, one of the church women in the courtroom had told another woman what the judge actually said. Not all of it enough. Emotional coercion. Boundary violations. No contact. The words moved differently when Elaine could not edit them first. I did not correct the internet. I did not post my side. Milo's life was not a comment section. Elaine's public world shrank anyway. Not dramatically. No movie scene. No crowd turning on her all at once. Just fewer invitations. Quieter greetings. People pausing before asking about Milo. Vanessa removing photos. Drew telling me once, months later, that Elaine had stopped going to the early service because too many people knew. That was consequence enough. Not because I wanted her ruined. Because for years she had used public sympathy as a weapon, and now the public had heard one clean sentence she could not soften. Milo's healing was slower than court. That is important to say. A judge can sign an order in one morning. A child's body may take years to believe it. For months after the adoption, Milo still asked, "Are you sure?" Before ordinary things. "Are you sure I can keep these shoes? Are you sure I go here after school? Are you sure if someone comes, you can say no?" Each time I answered, "Yes, yes, yes." Sometimes he asked to see the paper, not often. I kept a certified copy in a fireproof box and a regular copy in my desk. The first time he asked, I worried seeing it would make him anxious. But he touched the embossed seal with one finger and said, "That's the no-moving paper," I said. "That's one way to say it." He nodded and went back to building a cardboard train station. In October, his therapist told me he had started using the word before. Before court, he told her. Before home was done. When she told me that, I sat in my car afterward with my forehead against the steering wheel and let myself breathe. Ruth came for dinner most Thursdays after that. Not because we named it tradition. It just happened once, then again, then again. She brought bread or apples or nothing. Milo set an extra plate without being asked. Sometimes she helped with homework. Sometimes she sat at the table while I folded laundry and told stories about the school office in the 90s, when attendance was still written by hand and every child thought the copy machine was magic. She never called herself his grandmother. One evening, Milo asked her, "Are you like family?" Ruth looked at me first. She always looked at me first when the question belonged to Milo's safety. "I'm like Ruth," she said. "And I'm not going anywhere without your mama saying it's okay." Milo accepted that. He went back to his soup. I looked down so he would not see my eyes fill. The final time I saw Elaine was not in court. It was outside the grocery store the following winter, near the carts with the sticky wheels. Snow had turned gray at the edges of the parking lot. Milo was not with me. He was at a friend's birthday party, his first drop-off party where he made it the whole 2 hours. Elaine came out as I was putting bags into my trunk. She looked smaller, or maybe I had stopped letting her fill the frame. She wore a dark wool coat and no lipstick. For a moment, neither of us spoke. "Talia," she said. I closed the trunk. She looked around, maybe checking for witnesses, maybe hoping for none. "I know I'm not supposed to contact Milo. You're not supposed to contact me either if the purpose is to get to him." Her mouth tightened. I was going to say, "I hope he's well." He is. Her eyes flickered. She wanted details: height, school, missing teeth, favorite breakfast. The small daily proof of life she had once believed she could demand. I gave her none. She swallowed. "You think I'm a monster?" "No." That surprised her. I meant it. Monsters are easier. Elaine was a woman who chose herself every time and called it love. She gripped her purse strap. "I made mistakes, yes. I was grieving. I loved him first." I looked at her then, really looked. The woman who had stood in a courtroom and tried to take a child's safety apart because she wanted a title. The woman who had mocked the paperwork until it protected him from her. The woman who had taught me, without meaning to, that I did not have to make cruelty comfortable. "You may have loved the idea of being first," I said, but he needed someone to stay after the audience left. Her eyes filled, and this time I did not sort the tears. She whispered, "Paperwork really was all you had." I thought of the birthday card, the voicemail, the school office note, Nadine's report, Judge Caro's voice, Milo's hand loosening in mine, the blue button in the frame, the Thursday dinners, the no-moving paper. Then I said the last sentence I ever said to Elaine Brooks. "Paperwork didn't make me his mother, Elaine. It protected him from you." I got into my car and drove away before she could answer. That night, Milo came home from the birthday party with frosting on his sleeve and a small plastic whistle in a goodie bag. He told me the cake had been too loud because everyone sang, but he stayed because his friend Jordan covered one ear with him and laughed. He said it like a victory, which it was. At bedtime, he asked for the hallway light on, not the bedroom light. That was new. I turned on the hallway light and stood in the doorway. "Mama, yes? Do you think buttons know when they're fixed?" I leaned against the doorframe. "I don't know. What do you think?" He thought about it with the seriousness only children can give to impossible questions. "I think they know when nobody keeps pulling on them." I stood there after he rolled over, listening to the house settle. The next morning, I moved the shadow box from the hallway to the living room where the morning sun reached it. Not high like a trophy, just on the wall near the bookshelf, where it belonged to our ordinary life. In the photo, Milo's hand is tucked into mine. You can see Ruth's shadow at the edge because she took the picture while standing close. In the corner, behind the glass, is one flat blue button from a coat he outgrew long ago. People sometimes ask whether I forgive Elaine. They ask it carefully, as if forgiveness is the missing paper that would make the file complete. I don't answer that question the way they want. I hope Elaine becomes honest with herself. I hope Drew does too. I hope Vanessa learns that loyalty to a lie still makes you responsible for where it lands. But none of that requires access to my son. Our life is not dramatic now. That is the gift. Milo leaves socks in the hallway. He argues about brushing his teeth. He reads graphic novels under the covers with a flashlight and thinks I do not know. Ruth comes on Thursdays. Sometimes we burn the toast. Sometimes the school calls because Milo forgot his library book. Sometimes he has a hard week and sleeps with the hall light brighter. Sometimes he runs ahead of me into the house without checking to see if I am still behind him. That last one took almost a year. The first time he did it, he burst through the front door after school, dropped his backpack, and yelled, "I'm starving." like a child who believed the kitchen would be there and so would I. I stood in the driveway holding the mail, and I had to take a second before I followed him in. There are papers in the fireproof box. There are boundaries in place. There are people whose numbers stay blocked. There are court orders and certified copies and records with dates no one can smooth over at a family lunch. But most days, motherhood looks like knowing we are out of peanut butter before he asks. It looks like signing the field trip form. It looks like saying, shoes 6 times before school. It looks like noticing when his quiet changes shape. It looks like being the person he can be difficult with, because he no longer has to audition to stay. Elaine wanted the title in a room full of witnesses. I wanted the child to make it home from that room, with his hand a little less afraid in mine. That's my story. A blue coat button, the sentence, "Paperwork doesn't make you his mother," and a framed adoption photo in the morning light. If someone in your life only values you when you are useful, take this as your sign to stop confusing their need for your labor with love. You are allowed to protect the life you built, even when the people who benefited from your silence call that protection cruel. If this story reminded you of someone who stood beside you quietly when others made a performance of leaving, tell me about them in the comments. And if you are still in the part where your hands are shaking under the table, I hope you stay long enough to see what happens when the right person finally reads the record out loud.